7. We have a planned development zoning that there was a large development that was planned for the property that with the new bypass coming in is no longer going to be feasible. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Hampstead bypass, but these are the schools here. This is our property that moves behind it, and all of this will be built into the new bypass.
Which will have its own health problems.
What's that?
Which will bring its own health problems.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly is going to be much more impactful than anything we're planning to do. So, as we look at what we have been left with, Jamestown put together a plan to use this area as a bar pit for fill dirt throughout Henry County, which is in much need. You've seen the trucks that are traveling on 17 and the development that's going on in your county. The bypass is represented by these 2 yellow lines right here. It will take out all of that. They've not recorded those on the maps yet, but that will all be one massive interchange to the north of the schools. It is 300 feet wide and it resides on the boundary of the school. What we intend to do is start up in this area, and we are digging dirt that is underneath our property, and we'll be trucking that out to local home builders, development, and making it available for those who need it. And if the bypass for some reason needs those soils, then we may never have trucks that leave the property. So really, that is what we've been left with, and that's what Jamestown Pender turned to look to use the property for. I know there have been concerns about noise pollution and air pollution, the trucks coming in and out on 17. Our initial entrance that we've discussed using is by the water tower where we already have a driveway. A secondary option could be to come down to Jenkins Road where we also own property. All of that is up for discussion. These plans were just put in December, and with that, I'll open the floor for questions. And let's just do it by hands and try and be as civil about it as possible.
No, that's fine.
Yep.
I know you said, I guess people would have to be within 500 feet, or there's a distance, like some people got letters.
Yes.
Does that not apply to the schools? Like if my,
It did. The school and the county got
so
a
you
letter.
gave it to the school, not to the parents of the kids that go to the school?
That's right. That's not required in the UDO. And let me make a note. We're trying to take notes so that we get everybody's input.
That's fine.
So when you raise your hand, if you'll let us know your name, and then we'll include it.
Paige Cruz.
Paige Cruz. C-R-U-I-S.
C-R-E-W-S.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Dennis Hirschowitz. I'm the Vice President of the HOA for Castle Bay. So
Yes.
Okay. So we have a number of concerns because we've had some experience with much smaller local farmer sand mines, much smaller operation. The concerns are really if you do the research on the silt and the quartz that gets into the air, and you probably likely you'll have more because you're a larger operation. That definitely has a lot of issues related to it, scoliosis and a lot of lung issues, and it can adversely affect the community, surrounding community, as well as the schools. And although we were promised from the presentations of the local farmers that they would manage the truckers bin, the trucks were still uncovered because nobody was really managing those truckers. There was dust all over, coming through the air. Dust continued. That was number one. Number two, you could clearly hear the noise pollution on a constant basis as the shovels were dumping the dirt into the trucks. So just to begin with, we're concerned about that for adversely affecting the way of life for the surrounding community as well as the school. There's a lot of research that has been done by the University of North Carolina, other universities, as to thoracic issues. Unfortunately, the state of North Carolina operates under, I think, the 1971 mining act. I think the community has changed since 1971 And that act hasn't been updated, you know, to fit what's going on in our community now. In addition to that, we have on average today 42,000 vehicles coming through Hampstead. And we'll just be so we'd like to know, how are you going to address those kinds of issues?
Well, we do have a plan to make sure that trucks are covered, and that's going to be one of the things we talk about. We have water trucks around a mining operation like this or a field road operation, so that if there is silicate, you are spraying that down with water. The majority of what we're doing is down 10 to 15 feet, so it will be moist soils to begin with. So I don't have all your answers there, and we'll be glad to look into that even more, but you do have a number of mines that are already operating back up Hoover Road. And the amount of dirt we'll be moving is in the thousands less than what's going to be moved right there behind the schools or the bypass project.
In all due respect, I understand that the school, you know, going behind the school with the road's going to be a lot bigger issue. However, that's going to begin in a fixed period of time and end in a fixed period of time and bring relief to this community. Yours is going to go on for at least 10 years from what I saw according to what you
Potentially, yes.
So, if I may, I'd also like to turn it over to one of our residents, Stacy.
Hi, I have a
Okay.
couple of questions. So looking at that.
Your name, please?
Stacy Kitt.
Okay,
No,
yes.
two T's. So what looks like a figure eight, that's where you plan to dig?
It's one of the places, yes.
Okay, so you're gonna dig outside of that figure eight? Can you show us where else you plan to dig?
No, we don't plan to, we plan to dig in this area here, this area here, this area, this area, this area, and then these ridges and that ridge right there.
Okay.
Now, whether we dig in all of those places, we don't have plans to do that yet, but those are the areas that we can geologically use the sand that's there.
Okay, so what you're showing there is what I believe is a 50-foot tree barrier, but what you're pointing to are much smaller areas where you plan to dig. So why would you take out trees that you don't need to take out for the purpose of mining the sand in the soil?
We don't intend to.
Okay.
So when you see these buffers, they are the 50 feet from the actual dig area, but those will stay in their natural vegetation. And any vegetation that is in between there and the boundary of the property will also remain. So our buffers under the UDO are not even 50 feet. They're 25, 30, and 50. But especially back here at Castle Bay, I think we're 240 feet in between the backside of Castle Bay and the closest potential digging area. And in the area nearest the school, we are at least 200 feet to the 300-foot wide boundary of the right-of-way. So we're more than 500 feet from the boundary of the Pender County schools, and probably more like 1,000 feet to any of the buildings. So we're very sensitive to the buffers in this, and we've spent a lot of time with biologists. We do attach the hollow game shelter. You've got red cockaded woodpeckers over there. We've created a buffer on that side of the property where we will work with keeping that as a part. And our goal at the end of this,
Okay.
now that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
How much of a buffer between the digging and the game shelter?
At various points, but probably more than 1,500 feet from here to there. So all of this is parkland for RCW.
Castle Bay buffer, you said was 240 feet?
240 feet,
Yeah, so that's not even a tenth of a mile. It's very close.
but 5 times the buffer.
Okay, but the problem with the map is that all of the areas that are brown, we're assuming you're gonna rip out the trees and dig.
And that's not accurate.
Okay.
So, and we can get you better views of this map. I'm trying to get we
Well,
send
I don't
out.
want a better view
Yeah.
of this map. I want an actual representation of what you plan to do.
And this is it, I just can't get that to focus to the point that you want it.
Okay,
But
so,
these areas in here could all potentially be dug out, and that would equal 160 acres of 560 acres.
okay, but because it's brown, you can understand how we think that you plan to take those trees out, when what you're telling us tonight is that there's no reason for you to do that.
In the areas where we're digging, we will have to take trees out.
Okay, but the areas that you're pointing to are a small subsection of the areas that are brown on that map.
I'm still not following you.
Okay. So, excuse me, I'm
Yeah.
gonna point at your map if I can.
Yeah, please, come on.
We just lost it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we look at this map, and we see these brown areas, and we assume you're gonna mine all of the brown areas.
All of
And
the
leave
hatch
just a
areas.
small border of trees, right? I live in one of these houses.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you're gonna just dig down here, why isn't the rest of that green?
Well, it just marked in the hatch, but all of that is the vegetative buffer that will exist between this area and your house, which is.
Okay, so from this yellow line out, from the
Yes.
green line out, and then what happens in all of that brown area?
It could potentially end up being a pond.
Okay,
It will get-
before it
get
gets
dug.
to be a pond.
It will get
You're
dug.
gonna dig it out.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's my first question.
Okay.
My next question is, you said that you, Jamestown bought this property in 2007?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all of the property
Yes, ma'am.
in one purchase?
Yes, ma'am.
It's got 2 lot numbers,
It's got 6 lot numbers.
6 lot numbers, but you just notified us in your letter about 2 of the lots.
Because these 2 lots, which are about 79 acres that's here, and this 524 acres, are the 2 that are being taken to combine to make the 561 acre that will be rezoned.
Okay.
And that's because of the way that it's cut across. The other parcels are small parcels in front Jenkins Road, the parcel that wraps around this building, the library, and I think that's it. No, there's one trapezoidal property that is also part of that Jenkins Road.
Where's the commercial one you're developing?
Right here.
Okay, so that's the property that fronts on Route 17.
Yes,
And as I understand it, that's already been approved for a commercial development.
that's correct. Well, no, it has not been approved for a commercial development.
It hasn't been approved, but
No,
you're in the
it's
process.
planned development zoning.
Okay, so you don't need a zoning change for that.
We do not.
Okay, and as I understand it, there's also another parcel that's being considered for water wells and an RO plant. Can you show us where that is?
Don't know of that.
Okay, because that's also Jamestown property.
We've made no applications for an RO plant or wells.
Okay,
So was this land purchased in foreclosure or?
No, we purchased it outright in 2007. It had a master plan that was approved by the county at that point.
And the funds that you expect to recover in the lawsuit against the state, will that compensate you for your purchase price?
No, probably not, but I wouldn't make any guess of what will happen. We've been in the court system since
I think that's
2013.
coming to fruition because the Supreme Court ruled.
We would hope. But,
So you are going to be reimbursed for the not being able to build homes on this one.
I wouldn't think that we would be reimbursed anywhere near the purchase.
so my understanding though is that Jamestown has already been paid $200,000 because of the bypass that's going through its property.
That's not accurate.
That's not accurate. Okay, that
Not
was reported at,
200,000.
how much?
They were paid $135,000,
Okay. And what was the property purchased for in 2007?
$24 million.
Okay. And any idea what the profit will be from the part that's going to be commercial on Route 17?
I don't know that we'll ever build anything commercial on 17 because NCDOT is going to use this entire piece for their interchange. They're not going to give us curb cuts up there. That's my personal opinion, but we'll see.
Okay, so there's,
Yes.
Yeah, we could just jump in, I live in Castle, A lot of concerns is Bob Haley, jail.
Okay.
A lot of concerns these people have here. They also have concerns about, you're basically gonna come over Hoover Road to get to your property, correct?
No,
You're gonna come off of 17.
yes, and then if not there, then the DOT plan right now is to build a bridge over the bypass to get
Right,
Jamestown
right,
Pender access.
Right, that's Hoover Road, right, or is that 17?
No, that's Jenkins Road and St. John,
That's by the school.
right by the school. So we don't have any access to Hoover Road. Although, the last design I've seen, DOT is gonna build a service road parallel to the bypass for some of the other property owners along. Yes.
I'd like to say, first
Are
of
you
all,
done?
Yes.
before I have say any other questions, I want to tell you, have you seen the amount of people who are outside this building and even on the outside, hanging around just trying to hear a little bit?
And we're gonna,
And you rented this small room because apparently there was nowhere else in this whole community that you could find bigger than that to make this thing. So just a small amount of people was the only one. There must be 100 people out there right now. And they are not getting to hear all of this that we are talking about here, which is very interesting to
You could have leased the warehouse down the street.
you know, the Moose Lodge probably be happy for the business. Whatever.
well, again,
This
we
is
welcome the
okay, let me tell you, you've planned this fantastically from millions of dollars and many years' work. We couldn't plan a room where it would fit the people who come to hear all about it. Didn't sound like you're very interested in seeing everybody get to hear about it, but there's a lot more questions that a lot of people who really in the know about. I'll get some other questions. I
And your name, ma'am?
My name is Winifred Biden.
Thank you.
That's
Mr.
fine.
Yes.
That's fine.
Let's start here since Ms. Bruce has had a chance. Karen Swan.
I am from Castle
Okay.
And something that you said was skipping off. You said, well, the cynical view here is so small. That's not true. You said that it won't bother me, it's white ground that you're going to be picking up. My question is, everything that I've researched shows that the silica is micro size, and it doesn't even show up. There is no data to prove that what's going to happen into our lungs, our kids' lungs, 7 to 10 years down the road, and you want to change this from a residential to a mine when we already have 2 mines down the road from us. Why do we need to approve that you get to do this to us? You're doing something that we never, when we bought this area, it was supposed to be residential. We have a nice golf course here. People are out there all the time, and our winds keep getting higher and higher every year. What are you gonna do about the winds? You're just gonna go over that tiny little buffer you got there? What about the kids at the school who are playing outside? I am really concerned about our health issues here. Not just about what's gonna happen to our roads. You're not addressing that issue. What are you gonna do for your own people? There should be workers' comp to protect your people digging this out of the ground. What have you done about that? I wanna know what you're gonna do for future things. Are we gonna have to turn around and sue you in 10 years for what's happening to
Yeah,
our
because I will
kids?
if you hurt my youngins.
That's
Sorry.
exactly right. You have old people and young people.
Yes,
who
ma'am.
are
My name is
here.
Joyce Randolph, and I have talked to a number of people in here. I am very concerned. I have, as you can see, I have COPD. I have never smoked. My husband never smoked. My children have never smoked. I got secondhand smoke. Now, I know what damage this is doing to me in 3 years. Mine has come from a 0 up to a 4 of needing oxygen. Now, in the hurricane, I stayed at home. The builders put in plastic curtains to keep pollutions and air from me. And I thank God for Ken Nails who did that. But this is my concern, is that children, elderly people, people that live in Castle Bay, which is where I live, they have lung problems. There's asthma there, there's COPD there, there's lung cancer. And you are putting more pollutants in our air than we've ever had before. When you drive that diesel truck, and I'm sure all of those big trucks are diesels, and you take out 50 loads a day, that's 143,000 loads in 10 years if you do that. What happens to these, who's going to pay for these children who wind up with lung disease? Who's going to pay for having, just for the little things like our air conditioner in our car, that we have to have those that has to change all the time.
Yeah.
Then we have to have our home air conditioner, it's going to be backed up. I just got a new air conditioner. Lord knows I'm never gonna be able to afford another one. Who pays for that? Who pays for children that needs to see doctors for the rest of their lives? You're not changing something for our benefit, you're changing something for your benefit.
Yeah.
And you are going to change Hampstead forever. Because Hampstead, our homes will be depreciated, our community is going to be all practically wiped out. You can't sell a home when you're having that kind of building in our community. This is not right for Hampstead, and I don't appreciate what you're trying to do. Everybody wants to make a living, and I I've worked 40 years in smoke-filled offices with ashtrays on the desk. But I think that you're making a big mistake. Who pays for 10 years of dirt on your house? Somebody's got to power wash it. Who it is? It's the poor people who got stuck because you wanted this thing. You want things that you don't look down into the future. Most people look for what they will profit. They don't look what is going to happen to children, what's going to happen to old people. If I am going to have this, who's going to pay for my doctors? Who's going to pay for an attorney? Who's going to pay for court costs? Because, buddy, I'm going to find a way to sue. And I don't have any money, but I'm going to find a way. Because I think you're very wrong in what you're doing. And your response to that? Beg your pardon?
I understand, I'm not a doctor, I can't tell you what's gonna happen 10 years from now. I know
But I'm telling people that
these
sit
operations
here,
happen.
and these beautiful children that are over now in Sparrow's Bend that are all excited they moved to this new home. In 10 years, are their children going to play outside? I have trouble to go outside.
I do know this, that the impact of what we're talking about in the morning is going to be a great deal less than what the state is going to be doing right across the back of that property.
Okay, but yeah, but
they're not doing it for
50,000
10
cars
years.
a day.
they're not gonna be
doing
doing
it
it
for
for
10
10
years.
years. And that's actually something that helps our community, right? That benefits our community, at least arguably. And we don't see the benefit to having you mine up. I mean, you're hearing the complaints.
If these trucks don't come off of this property, they're going to be coming from 5 miles, 7 miles, 10 miles away. And they're going to be running through the same place. So there'll be more traffic driven by the DOT's project if Jamestown's not able to provide this dirt.
You know what, then wait and let
And
them
if
tell you what they
Jamestown,
need.
and if DOT were to purchase this property in its entirety, they're going to use that same area to get the filter.
Good point.
They're not going to be 10 years doing it. Like you say, you're going to be 10 years. And if anybody believes that you're going to stop at 10 years, honey, y'all better think again.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cruz.
I don't know how many of y'all are out here on the roads at 7 o'clock in the morning when I take my youngins to school. It is back to back. You don't go anywhere. There was a wreck up here by Fred's Bend.
Yep.
Stand still. And you want to add more traffic to it. It's not right. I mean, Jenkins, if you go sit at Jenkins Road, that's how I have to go to take my children. My first grader, I will be doing that until he's in 8th grade. When do you want to start all this? When is this, if it passes or whatever?
Next year.
Okay, so I'll have to put up with that kind of mess. And I mean, that road is already packed. All the high schoolers drive on that road to get to high school. elementary, middle school, parents that have to drop their kids off go that way, it is packed. Packed at 7 o'clock in the morning, and from my mother gets in line at 2 o'clock, and she says there's already people waiting to pick up their kids at 1:30. School does not get out until 2:40, and that's just the elementary school. You're dealing with a lot of kids right here and a lot of parents.
And you're
I
dealing
just
with a
want you
lot of traffic.
and a lot of it's real. If you
I appreciate that.
just know, I would love for one of y'all to come out here and just sit.
I have done that, and I know the traffic congestion.
Okay, so just think about
We
it.
understand this.
Okay, because
Yes,
Behind a
ma'am. I don't
diesel
think
truck
you heard
that is
me.
decent.
I'm sorry, one at a time, please.
My name is Carol Hansen. I just want to ask you a question about what you just said. So, do you have some sort of contract with the county for a filter at this point?
We do not.
Okay, because based on what you just said, it sounds like if they don't get it from you, they'll go get it from someone else. So I just wanted to know if you had a
My point was,
contract.
they're going to need dirt to build that highway. So that was my only point.
Right, I just wanted to understand your point.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna take a couple more questions, but we do have other people out in the room, so we wanna try and do this. I am available. If you call me, I will return your call. The folks that have called me, I think, can attest to that. I'm open to the discussion. This is not the only time we're gonna have this discussion. There's a planning board meeting on
We'll be
March
there.
3rd. Just one second, Mr.
I just have
Dershowitz.
one question.
Yes.
Who approved all this to your company?
Nobody has.
Nobody
How did you
approved
get
it.
a chance to go in there, buy up land for $34 million without anybody approving it and draw up all these maps and then make it sound like it's fait accompli? At that age,
We purchased the property in 2007 in an open market. It's a real estate purchase. It was master planned at the time and been approved by Pender County.
why did you
for-
buy it?
Yeah, that's my question.
I'm sorry, what?
Why did you buy it?
To build out that master plan, and then the Department of Transportation
To build houses. They were gonna build houses.
build houses and commercial.
And what we don't realize is that in the time from 2007 to 2020, the entire area has changed.
We do.
This is a suburb where you're wanting to put heavy industry and mining. It's completely inappropriate.
Understood.
Yeah.
Mr. Dershowitz, you have something that Mr. Chairman?
I'd just like to clarify one thing, two things actually. The first is, so I appreciate what you're saying about sourcing the sand to the bypass, okay? However, that is a limited design event. You're gonna be mining sand before and after, correct?
If we were to sell the bypass, we don't have enough sand back there to fulfill their needs.
So you're saying, if you were going to buy this, it would be your sand?
We'd be done.
Okay, the second thing is I'd like to spend a couple minutes, because I think it's important that you hear the talking points that relate to this. For the Mines and Safety Health Administration, exposure to high levels of respiratory reports can result in respiratory and other diseases in humans. For OSHA, many are aware of the harmful effects of concrete dust, crystalline silica, and make a conscious effort to protect themselves from that. However, per OSHA, there are countless lives that are impacted negatively by scoliosis, lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, and kidney diseases because of crystalline. And the Mining Act is supposed to regulate this, but it, again, hasn't been looked at since 1971. Per Dr. John Howard, Director of National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, along with the National Institute for, joined with Dr. Michaels of OSHA, and said basically the same thing. History shows that exposure to this, to silica and crystalline dust cause lung issues. Pender County is supposed to require with their, you're going for special use permit, is that correct?
I don't believe we have to have a special use permit.
Okay, well, we should see if you need to get one, because that requires that it will not impair the health of the community or the immediate neighbors of the property, which you are definitely going to do. The American Thoracic Society reports chronic respiratory ailments are prevalent in individuals exposed to this dust. The National Cancer Institute and the Department of Labor and the Department of Environmental Sciences report the same thing. So the point is like it or not, what you're going to do puts this community in danger. Thank you.
Thank you. This gentleman had one more comment.
John Valenti, the president of the Castle Bay Homeowners Association. Have you done any water table studies regarding this? Because you're going to be mining, and I don't know how deep the plan is. I heard 10 feet, and then I wasn't sure if that's as far as
10 to 20 feet. We have done water table studies and geotechnical, and we have talked with a well specialist here in Pender County to make sure that we're not impacting any of the water bays and the Castle Hanging Aquifer or the other aquifer. We're just not going that deep.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is because we get our water from Aqua, North Carolina, which is the greatest quality anyway. They were not aware that you're doing anything in that area, according to the person.
But they're here tonight. We sent them the letter also, and so again, we're at the beginning of the process.
All right,
The
so,
process, just so everyone knows, when you go in and dig the hole, you are taking the water into a retention pond. There's chemical usage. It is just the raw dirt that's coming out. It is then put back into the water table through the wetlands that are on the property. There is a very slight, less than 0.5% to 1%, from what I'm told by the geologist, evaporation rate on that water. But the water is just going right back where it came from.
the two public meetings, the two meetings you just mentioned on March 3rd and April 20th, are those public meetings or are those closed meetings?
That'd be a question for planning. I understand planning board and commissioner meetings.
How do they close?
They better be public.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have, I think, a simple question.
Your name?
My name is Janet Fisher, and I do live in Castle Bay. And previous to living in Castle Bay, I lived in another area of Hampstead. But I moved here 21 years ago, and since I've lived here, and before I lived here, this community's been talking about the bypass. Now, I know people that lived here before I lived here, and they were talking about it 10 or 20 years before we came here. Did you really not know that there was going to be a bypass going through there? I mean, common sense tells you that that bypass has to go west of 17. It's not going to go east of 17. There's nowhere to go. It has to go west of 17. So you're saying you bought that property in 2007 and had no idea?
No, ma'am. There were 14 different routes under consideration at the time that we
So
bought
you
the
didn't know,
bypass.
you didn't know.
You did know there was a possibility.
There was a possibility,
Good
yes.
possibility. Because I was going to say, why the heck did you buy that land?
So,
Why would you buy that land? If you knew there was going to be a road going through
well,
it.
there was a possibility of it. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Stephanie Guanzini. I'm a general contractor for 20 years, and I just wanted to know why you think you can't build near the bypass when other places around these counties are building commercial properties.
Well, that's a great
and things
question.
like that.
So-
Because I feel like that's going to change water tables. That's going to cause. How deep are you digging?
10 to 20 feet.
So you won't hit rocks at 10 feet.
We do, we won't go any further. We can only dig where there is usable sand. We've
Well, you
done,
can frack. You can
We would
frack
not do
sand,
that.
but that would be.
and that would be outside of this permit anyways.
Okay.
The sand mine permit is just for filter.
But what makes you feel that you can't build near the bypass? Because if you look at areas like off Gordon Road, there's houses everywhere near that bypass.
So,
And in other areas.
That's a great
So
question.
That's why I'm kind of confused why you can't build
so
there.
all of our access up on 17 is going away. They're going to take this entire property for an interchange. So if you look at the plans for the bypass, this is a 2017 plan. All of this will be restricted access. So if you're not on 17, you won't be able to turn into any of this property up above Transfer Station Road. So there is no access here. The only access point that DOT is planning on leaving Jamestown Pender for the remaining 560 acres in the back is a bridge that they're going to spend $3 million to build a bridge
Of our money.
that's got
Yep.
20 yards of asphalt on it deal with this property back here. And that 2-lane access under the Pender County UDO will only allow for 30 units of residential back there.
What about commercial?
None.
You're saying that,
Excuse me,
you're saying.
Yes,
do you know you have a line
I
out
do,
here
and-
stretching out to the parking lot?
I do, and we're getting ready to shuffle this group out and shuffle y'all in. Thank you.
You're saying
I
that.
have one last question.
One more question, right here.
I want to know, did you do any traffic surveying of what is in Hampstead before you bought this property?
We have done extensive traffic impact analysis.
Well, I have to tell you that the state policeman that I know very well, that said Pender County and all of North Carolina, Route 17 and Pender County has the highest traffic accidents in the whole state. Why are you doing this when we're already in trouble?
And that, did you do the survey in 2007 of the traffic? Or we don't know?
We did one in 2017. I did 2017. Folks, again, I will be open and for discussion. Thank you. I know there is a lot.